Welcome back, everyone. It's Blue Inferno here, and today I really wanted to talk about how the reversal of Hot Patch 69 is just a terrible decision for Dark and Darker as a whole, and I wanted to give my opinions why, as well as review some of the opinions I got from the previous video that I made. So if you put your comments inside of the last video, I'm going to bring some of them up and go over. I saw some incredible feedback from people. We had some great conversations, and honestly, I would say as a whole, from anybody on any side of this conversation right now, we had a really good conversation there, and I was happy to see that there wasn't much trolling and people genuinely caring and bringing their concerns to the front. Now, interestingly enough, I'm going to have to put a disclaimer in this video because I'm doing it a lot more freeform. Tonight, I didn't have very much time to make a video, and writing a script can take me hours, so I just kind of gave myself a little bit of a guide on the side, and I'm just going to have at it. And I'm probably not going to go through and edit through and try to put text or cuts or anything like that. It's very time consuming. I just wanted to get this opinion out there and see what your guys' thoughts and feelings are on it, and as well as to give my own. First and foremost, we're all here to have fun and have fun playing Dark and Darker. It's our passion to play the game and to have it in our lives and to have it be awesome and the best that it can be. And I honestly got that feedback from everybody that I talked to in my comments from the other video. And I just want to make sure you guys all know we are all on the same team. We want the game to be as fun as possible for as many people as possible. Second disclaimer is fun is a very subjective thing. What I think is fun might not be what you think is fun, and vice versa. So in turn, there's no way for one of us to command another person saying this is how it's fun and this is the only way. Really, we're trying to find the best way for the game to move forward, for the game to be successful. And I'm going to give my defenses and my reasons why I think and how I think we can all turn it into a more fun game, and why Hotfix 69 was a step in the right direction for everyone. Well, almost everyone. RMTers would have got fucking slammed by it. The third disclaimer is less of a disclaimer and more of a personal belief of mine that you should never go to other people in a community that you want to see grow and thrive and turn on them and say, well, you just shouldn't play the game. No, that we shouldn't be in the business of doing that, and we don't want to see anybody get kicked out. If I say I would like to see this become a priority, it does not mean that I want this thing that you might like a lot more than I do to just go away and for you to leave. That is not the case. I believe there are things and principles that we should hold on to, and preferably the more the better. But please do not ever take away from me that I think that you're second rate and you don't get to have an opinion on it. I want you in the community. I want you playing the game, unless you're a hacker or an RMT piece of shit. Then get the fuck out. Now, with no further ado, let's begin. From what I can tell, there's really two large debates around this topic, and they have a lot of overlap onto them. But they're the main things that people are fighting about and the main topics that come up from other live streamers and content creators, as well as different people that I play with. And those two debates are the motivation to play debate, and the second one is the gear discrepancy debate. That, from what I can tell, is where the majority of this hostility is coming from and where most people find themselves at odds with each other. But first, we're going to start off with the motivation debate, which I think is kind of the one that's at the forefront of most people's minds. It seems to come up a little bit more often than the stats discrepancy debate. So we'll open up with that. And in the motivation debate, there's two sides to it. We have the people who are looking for the motivation by loot and the people that are motivated by gameplay. And with those two sides being at each other's throats over this whole topic, there's one thing that I really would like everybody from both sides to really focus on. We can have both. Yeah, it's mind-blowing. It is possible for the community to have both. The only problem that we're running into right now is how to achieve having both. And the reason why people are struggling to see both of them come to fruition is because of how the game has been for so long. Having an extremely high gear gap and that kind of massive loot discrepancy has taken away so many other aspects of the game that people don't even notice they're gone, so that the entire pursuit has only become that. My proof that this exists is as soon as they took the loot away, people said it's not fun and they left. Think about it. That is how little you are in love with the gameplay right now. Now, look at the other side of the argument. The people who are saying we should be motivated by it, we shouldn't bring back the loot. They already love the gameplay, and they're keeping it. The people that are motivated by loot don't love the gameplay so much they will stop playing the game without the loot. Do you not see an issue here? The state of the game right now has inhibited almost anybody, because look at the two sides here. What do they have in common? They want the state of the game to change. So the only thing that's good about it, if you're motivated by loot, is the loot. The gameplay cannot hold it up on its own in your eyes. Well, the other side of the argument also believes the current state of the fighting isn't good, so they should take away the loot to get it better. It's strange that, in a roundabout way, we're in agreement. It needs to be improved. And the core root problem of this gameplay issue is, ironically, the loot. Now, let me get into that really quick. There's going to be a lot of people that say, well, why? Why does it have to be the loot? You know, it's all like, no, I can still get a fancy, shiny thing, and the game can still be good. And you're absolutely right. But the problem is how we get there, right? It really gutted me when one peg popped off on the video. I watched his video and immediately knew this was going to be a gong show. He got very hostile about it, and in my opinion, didn't apply enough vision towards the possibilities of this step back, decreasing the loot pool, what we could actually get out of it all. If you're one of the people whose motivation is loot and only loot, then you should be one of the biggest advocates that we see that core gameplay get better so that you can extract even more fun out of the game. And if what they need to do to achieve that objective is to decrease that dopamine you get from loot for a little while, wouldn't it be worth it? Wouldn't it be worth it in the long run? Like, I get it. It's absolutely your prerogative to state the loot is what makes it fun for you. I'm not trying to tell you what's fun. What I'm trying to tell you is that for them to achieve even better, they might have to step away from that for a short time. I want it to be there. I came up with an idea, which I think would just be sick. Imagine they bring out the socketing system and the super uniques and the giant gear changes that you end up getting ends up coming down to finding these epic ass gems and slotting them into the items. But not just that. If you carry a gem in and you take down like a high roller boss, you can then infuse that gem with the destruction of the high roller boss that you can socket into your gear later. And that's how you make the most epic, crazy ass shit. But those soul bound gems are bound to your account. So in which case, you are now motivated to boss like a son of a bitch. You need to find the gems like a son of a bitch, and then you have to procure and put together the kit to its highest level. And this could just still land in the old loot system stat tables, but you get to choose what perks you get. And then, since you can empower the gems to the top of their tier, you can make the literal BIS kits that are just absolutely mind-blowingly good. In my opinion, that is just one idea that I came up with. Who knows what SDF and Terry have come up with? That would, for me at least, absolutely slap. That would motivate the hell out of me to get those gems. I would love making kits. I love kit design. Another couple easy ways that they could enhance that kind of loot incentive going for you is going to be specialty skins that you're capable of looting. Imagine if you kill a player, you get their dog tag, and depending on their achievement level, however many whatever kills they have or what their ranking is, they end up providing some kind of value to you later when you get out of the dungeon to either generate a trophy or get you a new item skin, or maybe you can trade it in for cash. I don't know. Maybe you can trade it in for those new socketed gems. Either way, there's lots of systems they can add to give that feeling while still maintaining the integrity and balance that gives us a more solid core gameplay experience for more players, including yourself. On a final side note here, whatever happened to the relic weapons? Did they just become dog shit? The fact that Fulgor is stacking on a ton of damage after the initial hit? I don't know. Those always were there, and those always looked awesome to me. So, again, I don't see that perspective. I'm far more motivated by the fact that we see excellent gameplay come out of it and an easier time to achieve that excellent gameplay for more players, because more players makes an even better game whenever you're looking at a big PvP game like this. And I hope that they can find a way to achieve them both. Now, this big time segues into the second debate that I brought up, because they're not exactly the same thing, which is looking at larger stat discrepancies versus smaller stat discrepancies. Because you can provide a loot incentive for cool ass shit, whether or not it's cosmetic, whether or not it's customizability for getting the stats exactly that you want on the piece that you want, whether or not there's so many creative ways that they can enhance the loot without changing stat discrepancy. But currently, the way the game is, they are linked, so it really makes them look like the same topic. So let's get right into this one too. This one is probably the biggest problem for me. It is the hugest thorn in my side that really kills the game and makes it really hard for me to sell it to new people. It makes it really hard to bring others on board, and it also makes it hard for me to play a lot of times, especially if I get bogged down with work or a lot of family events at some time. I can normally only put in 6 to 10 hours a week. If I'm lucky. Some weeks I get to pop off, I can do 30, maybe 40 if I go crazy on the weekend or if it's holidays or something like that. But no, normally it's 6 to 10. And when you think about how much time it takes to be able to play just a round of Dark and Darker, You're going to sit down and you're going to put together your kit, then you're going to get into the dungeon. By the time that you get to the end, you've probably spent 20 to 30 minutes once you've finished offloading your stuff, going to the market and selling it all off. That's one round. So that means we can quantify this pretty good. Let's go on the middle end here. I get, you know what, higher end. I get 10 hours a week to play Dark and Darker. So that means that I'm going to get about 20 runs. How much fun am I getting really per run? Well, that depends entirely on what happens during the raid. You know, if I'm down in the dungeon and we're just having fun kicking ass, even if we lose, but every fight is fun, whether or not we win or we lose, because it feels balanced, it feels tight. We come together as a team and we just have a blast no matter what. All 20 are big win games, top notch. I'm happy I'm there. And this is where stat discrepancy can really shit all over that. Because I have less time to play, the likelihood of me having good enough gear or the practice to be competitively, like I'm not a top tier player, obviously. On your average game that you're getting into, nothing feels worse than a fight that was literally hopeless from the start. If you end up fighting somebody and you're in mostly greens and blues and they're all mostly in legendaries and uniques, you guys tell me who's going to win that with the stat discrepancy as it is right now. Now, it's obvious the person that's inside of the legendaries and inside the uniques should have a significant edge. They have the better kit. They've put more effort into getting it. Right now, maybe a little too much effort into getting it. But as it is, it's almost entirely hopeless unless I am just monstrously better than them. I'm not going to be able to pull that back. I'm going to have to hit them like 7 or 8 times and they 2-tap my ass. And that's the end of it. Cool, that run's a wash, but that's okay. I've got 19 more. Well, let me tell you how many people have a lot of time to play more Dark and Darker. Well, I don't know the exact numbers, but I'm going to tell you a whole fuck ton. So you're going to end up seeing not just rounds that become kind of botched because you get floated by fucking spiders and then something dumb kills you, and that's always dumb. Or you end up just running out of time. Getting portal fucked before was just the worst. Oh, that was just savage. Or you end up having your teammate fuck something up, they're dead, and now you go into a 2v3. Could have been a good fight, now it's not, because you know what? Bad luck is bad luck. And each time I'm losing a round over the course of the week, the fun turnaround isn't really there for me. It's just not. There's no quantity of loot in the game that's going to make that more fun. The general game experience for the amount of time I have for the quantity of games I can play is too low. It becomes diminishing returns. Now, fortunately, I love the research of it. I love the actual math of it. I'm a big time fucking nerd. If you check out my videos, I love going into that creative and mathematical nonsense. So more than anything, that's really what's been keeping me playing. I can't really get in there and compete most of the time, but I can at least research the hell out of it and try crazy shit. And then if I were to try to bring in other players of mine that I know that just kind of dropped the game, life moved on, how the fuck are they going to get back into it when I've stayed up to it? They won't. You know, you want the loot. Why do you want the loot? What do you do with the loot? If the servers are going to wipe in 3 months anyways, you're going to get it so that you can have a huge stat advantage. Anybody way better than you is still going to dumpster your ass. So why do you need such a big stat gap? It feels cool? Well, then why don't we just give everybody good gear? No. You also won't accept that because now you're not motivated. What is this motivation? I said it in the last video and I'm going to say it again. It's simply so you can stat gap people who aren't as wealthy as you. That's it. You want an unfair advantage. You don't want to earn victory by beating a player. You want to earn victory by playing more than the player. Otherwise, what's the value of the thing? The other arguments that could be presented towards the value of the thing, which I honestly don't believe very many people have, is a gotcha addiction problem, where you just gotta see that next legendary, you gotta see that orange box, and that's what just fucking gets your engine revving, and then you go back to your stash and you set it inside and you look at it every night before bed. That is the only other reason I could fathom somebody just being like that into it. Because otherwise, the way that it was before, you could still be strong. You could still be fast. As a matter of fact, it was easier to be strong and fast. You could still get all the other statistic affixes. So you could still build into the same build. You had equal access to creative expression of builds. What you lost was a reward for your time. And that reward was gapping motherfuckers who don't have the same amount of time as you. And if that's what you think is fun, again, like I said at the start, it's subjective. That's up to you. If you do, at the bottom of your heart, you just fucking, it just does it for you, then it does. I can't tell you it doesn't. It's just how it is. But I can tell you that that's not good for new players. That's not a fun way for other people to play the game with you. Well, you remember you were in school and there's always that one kid who would just like cheat or wreck the game if they started losing. Like you're playing a game of checkers. As soon as he caught wind that he's losing, he's going to like pick up his backpack and knock the pieces everywhere, or or he's just going to cheat as soon as you look away. It's just not really worth playing against him. Or if he's losing soccer, he kicks you in the shin and says, oops, sorry, then runs away because he wants that unfair edge. But you know what? He's having the time of his fucking life. And then when it turns south, he fucking leaves. I'm not saying you guys are the same people. What I'm saying is, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it most likely is a what? Again, I want people to have fun. And I want to see the game be in a better place. But I also want people to see the implications of their decisions. I can understand somebody wanting to get that motivation for time, but then you also need to understand the motivation for other people to keep something alive with you. You have to be able to play well with those other people, or else they just won't play with you. And at what point in time is that threshold met where you are satisfied with the loot? Please leave that in the comments below. Honestly, I just don't understand the threshold. The gear was still good, but not enough. Was it an extra 1 strength per piece of kit? Was it an extra 2 stats per piece of kit? What is it that you require to feel that the incentive is there? It just blows my mind. And another major problem with having those giant statistics gaps is it kills creativity. Honestly, I watch a lot of different YouTubers, all of the people that I love watching playing. Love watching the lore. I love watching Jay Griffia, Yami. Party Chip has been fucking excellent. His move tech is insane. I don't know how I feel about the singing. He's good at it, but we'll see. It'll probably grow on me. But watching everybody playing, you always see the same builds. Curious. The frequency that I'm sitting there is like, there goes the Crystal Sword Fighter. Yep, classic PDR. It's going to take X amount of hits, and he's going to do Y and X. And oh, yeah, of course he's dead now. He fucked up. Because that is how a Crystal Sword Fighter works. Oh, Ronda Buckler Fighter. Here he comes. Yeah, and then even the person playing the game will exclaim when they see something. It's like, holy shit. A fighter with a quarterstaff. Why the fuck does he have a quarterstaff? Did he just use perfect block with a quarterstaff? He's trolling. What a joke. Get out of here. Nobody. What a guy. Brownie points. You came out, you had some fun. That's nice. Most classes have between, I don't know, I think it's 6 to 12 skills. I could be wrong on that, but I know it's around there. And really only like 2 or 3 are viable on each of them. And then when you go through perks, probably half of them, and I think we're looking at 10 to 14 for each individual class's perk sets, only really half of them ever get used because you fucking have to. When you have statistics discrepancies, there becomes a far more distinct and far more pronounced metagame. There's a reason people don't do the other stuff. It's because it doesn't work. That's why. What happens if you do decide to be creative? And I always try to, and I'll tell you, it's really fucking hard. So let's say you come across one of those Rondeldegger fighters, and you are off meta. Oh no. You're a barbarian that has decided to spec and buffing your team. You took Warcry and Savage Roar just so that you can be this crazy war boss barbarian leading from the front, buffing up your teammates, and your team got together and you came up with, all right, we'll have a bard so we can be going fast, and then the rogue, once we get into the fight and he's gotten all the buffs, is going to flank and just beeline it straight towards their backline. That seems cool. That's fun. And then you run into the Rondeldegger PDR fighter and you go, fuck. It's cool we came out, guys. We had a good time. I don't have Achilles strike. I'll never be able to lock him down. Oh man, I can't outrun him because, I didn't take rage. I didn't play the appropriate meta. Fuck. So what you end up seeing is an exacerbation of this meta. More and more, the more these stats box you into them. What happens when everybody's stats are a lot more even is that you can express yourself a lot more. You don't have to depend on it. Another example that I have for this is when I was making my Warlock builds before, I had to, every time, reach a minimum of 315 to go into a high roller lobby, and I would still get run down by 330 max speed clerics in complete BIS bullshit. Whatever, it happens, I gotta fight them, whatever. It is what it is, but 315 was my minimum. I had to be there. Well, why? Why did I have to be at 315? Well, it's because I knew they were going to build 330. Well, how hard is it to build 330? Well, you just need money. That's the issue. You know how much his kit cost? Probably 10, 15, 20,000 gold. Mine cost 4 or 5. But that 4 or 5 took me an entire week of gaming to get. So I guess I go back to normals now. Sweet. His kit's better. He wins. So if I can't build to counter that, then I might as well not show up. And 315 is just my fucking minimum. And now what we saw with Hotfix 69 was he wouldn't have been at the max move speed. He could not have run me down. The stats don't exist. They're not there. We would have ended up being roughly the same speed. If he teched into it a little bit more, I might have been able to stand a chance to get a block. Anytime he swung, I would have been slightly faster than him. We would have had some give and take in there. A discrepancy of 5 to 10 move speed isn't that big of a deal. But when you start seeing characters that are at 15, 20, 30 move speed discrepancy, that's night and day, guys. There's no coming back from that. That difference is too much, and it just gets exacerbated when you look into normal games, when you just have someone running around in greens and blues, and they don't have very many utility slots filled in, and they run into somebody mostly perps and maybe a couple of legendaries. You're going to start seeing that 20 to 30 move speed. And let alone that, if you go into the move speed meta, it's just going to be that much farther out. If they built their character properly, which a couple of people have commented on, and they do, there is a proper way to build kits in Dark and Darker. Again, that's a problem. So they did it properly. They got a 30 move speed bonus. They decide when they fight. They decide how they fight. If they get ambushed by the other team, oh no, they're in the wrong position. They put away their weapon and they walk away. Man, that other team, they made a plan. They came together. Their teamwork could have been amazing. They probably even could have been better players, but they're never, ever, 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 ever going to catch them because they are 30 move speed too fucking slow. That's bad. The game should never have that big of a discrepancy, especially a discrepancy that is directly linked to time. I really think it's an issue. When a game starts seeing some players being able to win with impunity over others, and it's a PvP game, on something that isn't involved in that moment, in something that is affectable in that moment of gameplay, what it creates is one party with a good experience and one party with a bad experience. That makes it a 50% bad game. Both parties should have fun, win or lose. Yeah, one side's going to be have a lot more fun because they fucking won, but the team that lost should sit there like, I had a fight actually yesterday, it was awesome, where at the end of it we all lost and I died, and I knew it's because I fucking whiffed my longsword riposte on a barbarian. It was an awesome fight. I ended up pushing back a wizard like it was going great. I got the riposte, he fucking ducked it, the mad lad, and on my second swing he moved out of range, jumped back in, and I fucked up my next parry. Awesome fight. You know, I had ebbs and flows, things were happening, like we're making decisions in real time that could affect each other. Nobody could just, oh, I'm done with this, put their weapon away and just leave. A good game needs everyone to have fun. And the concept of having somebody have such a big advantage will always harm at least one person's experience in it. And in my opinion, for a game that is supposed to offer fun to its patrons, all of them, that is fundamentally a flaw, no matter how you try to spin that. Even though, one person had fun. And the last thing I want to touch on as far as the larger statistic discrepancies argument, where some people just love to have those large discrepancy issues. So i.e. they want to have the most gold, they want to have just something that makes them crazy juiced, versus the people that don't, is the fact that stats come from gold. They do. That's how you get stats on items. Or you got to go get the items themselves. And then that means you're going to have to go into high roller dungeons. You're going to have to be taking out bosses. You have to learn how to do the bosses. You got to be geared enough to go get the bosses, and then you got to go farm the bosses. And you also need to have friends a lot of times to help you get the bosses, unless you're kicking ass and taking names. And all of those things take an exorbitant amount of time. And just getting gold is easy. Like, I could start training somebody today. They could have 1,000 gold an hour. Sweet. And then they have to continue doing that. And this is a method where they would have to just keep going into the dungeon, skirting the edge, looting what they can, and getting out. Just avoiding players. Make money so that you can make enough gold. And that's where you just see time equaling gold. The people who have the time to go in and grind all day. The people that have the time to go into the dungeon and just skirt around, just picking up little scraps everywhere inside the dungeon. They can spend 15, 16, 17 hours a week, maybe 20, some people upwards of 30 or 40 hours a week, just collecting that gold and soaking it up. It kind of creates an issue here that the game, correct me if I'm wrong, is pay to win. You're not winning at this point through skill. You're not winning at this point through a decision you made in the moment of the event that happened, or a decision that you even made during the game you're currently in. You're winning almost solely and entirely, not by spending cash, but by spending time. Now I'm going to tell you, as somebody with a full-time job, time and money are the same thing. Food for thought, I guess. But now we can move on to some of the comments that I got in the other YouTube video. I wanted to read them because there were some good insights that I saw that were given and just some excellent people inside of there. So now we're jumped over to the comments section of the last video I made, where I kind of got to hear a lot of the points made from both sides of the argument. And some of them are very interesting takes, like Dong Mei right here saying, but if you take all the variables out of the game becomes one-dimensional. That means the game becomes dull very quickly. Now, I did reply to every one of them. If you want, you can go and read those and see exactly what I said to them personally. But my thoughts on this problem is I mentioned that less variables make the game easier to balance. And it's intrinsically true. The less variables you have, the easier it is to balance. His counter argument is if there's not enough, then it's not fun. Let's consider that we have over 100 pairs of gear. We have 8 different classes, each one having 14 different perks, and each one having between 6 and 11 skills. And then we go across 3 different maps, one of which has 3 different levels. The other one has 2 different levels. We have tons of different mobs. We have tons of different ways to play, team compositions. I don't think we're in danger of lack of variables. He is right, though. Fundamentally, he's right. I just don't see it as a risk for Dark and Darker. Some comments about why don't they use the test server. Obviously, it's because not a whole lot of people play on it. And this guy right here stating, I don't have fun in looting anymore, so I don't have fun playing anymore, so I quit. This, I think, is just sad. I don't want to see that happen, but I also don't think the way that it is right now is healthy. Something needed to change. Again, this is just too bad. I don't like to see this, and I really hope that they can find a way where I can meet at the same time as Yeet and say that the game is in a better place and it's the most fun that it can be for everyone. Now, Ali here made an interesting comment, so I'm going to read this out for you guys. Interesting take. I enjoy your videos and the way you explain things. I do. Appreciate it, Ali. However, I disagree with the categorization of everyone that is against this patch are people that like to outgear Timmies and kill them. I would say majority of the outrage is because gear in a looter shooter extraction game has been made near meaningless. I'll come back to this. Now, I get that there is still meaning, but it's not significant enough in my opinion. I am all for skill-based games. In fact, a lot of games I love are skill-based games like StarCraft 2, UFC games, Fight Night, Mechabellum, etc., etc. I don't mind this game going that route. I just want them to be clear with it and give me the incentive for playing leaderboard skins, leagues, etc. And he brings it up in a fantastic way, and this is the kind of shit that I want to see out of the community more. We can disagree, bring up our points, and just have a good conversation about it. Obviously, we might have a little bit more of a heated take, or we might say something a little bit not in alignment with each other, but that's all right as long as we're trying to show respect, we're trying to have a conversation. Not the whole rage bait fucking bullshit spam on general chat. That shit was cancerous, and it's really a terrible thing to have in any community, and I hope that we see this community stop doing it, because that shit was just disgusting and pathetic. Now, back to the statement here. I would say the majority of the outrage is because gear in a looter shooter / extraction game has been made near meaningless. I don't see how did it have meaning before? What meaning did it ever have? It is a tool to play the game with. So the fact that they lost a couple of stats made them meaningless? I really honestly don't understand. Now moving on to another comment here. I actually really like this one from Assailant. This doesn't incorporate all the changes made ahead of this patch that should have also been reverted. Armor pen on half weapons, for example. Also, I feel the argument people are mad because they just want to gear stomp Timmies is bogus. From what I've heard, most people, including myself, are upset because grinding for gear was the one thing we had left to do and finding good gear was exciting. There isn't enough content to run these crazy annoying experiments on your player base. I stomp Timmies in gear and naked either way. Hell, they have separate GS controlled lobbies for noon battles. All right, fair point, honestly. Again, though, you are getting the gear for the sake of saying you found the gear, right? That's what I'm seeing is his argument here, which was something I made a joke about earlier, which is getting a legendary to put it into your inventory to look at it. Well, okay, I understand. It lost some of their stats, but it's still valuable. Is the exciting part not the rarity and its comparative value to the current market? I don't see how that went away. If you found a legendary with all BIS perfectly rolled stats in the 69 system versus the previous system, would it still not be the best available option? I had checked even at the store that day, and one of my favorite weapons is the Void Blade, just because it looks so fucking cool and I love its name. I will do anything for drip. I fucking love drip, but it was still 10,000 gold for a sword. You know, if you're looking at the high-end rings, you're still looking at 8 to 12,000 gold. Those prices didn't change. The rarity of the stat rolls, considering you're looking at trying to get 4 out of a 16 set with out of the potential stats that can even be rolled of those 4 stats, is preposterously low, you're still playing a gambling game every time you open a chest where you are still having things that are of greater or of lesser value. That can't be why you're upset, because that factor still exists. There's still a discrepancy of goods. That value changes based on accessibility inside of the market. Some items are going to give some players an advantage over other players, and that's why they want to get it. That is what gives it value. And it's going to adapt and change with whatever is available on the market. Supply and demand, people. And let alone that, all of the artifacts are still in the game. That's the shit that really gets the heart pumping if you're a big loot junkie. And on top of that, they're extremely value. And on top of that, they're really cool. Like, I don't see saying there is no gear as a viable option. Maybe if he said the market value decreased, but that just increases your purchasing power. So I don't see the perspective, this perspective at all either. The gear discrepancy is still there. The gear, in contrast to what's available, difference is still there. So I'm sorry that he was made upset by the fact that they did change it. I just, again, can't see how he overlooks those two major factors. Either way, still brings up the point respectfully, and I appreciate the opinion, but this is my counter statement to that. The only thing that really remains is one common theme that you couldn't do anymore. Your gear didn't give you an unassailable advantage. That's the only thing that went away in true and in earnest from my perspective. Unless somebody can come up with an actual argument of in-game effects. Tell me what was actually gone, aside from a feeling, which again, you're entitled to your own feelings. I can't change that. If that's what your feeling is, but the math says something else, your feelings are right, but your math can be wrong. And then it's also important to note that I had a lot of people that agreed with me. For example, Chronoscape. That's what I told my two friends who play, who hold the line. More changes will come. It's not definitive and so on. I do hope they move it in a direction where we can experiment with fun builds. This, I can obviously get 100% behind you there, Chronoscape, is along the lines of my thinking. Now, there's one last thing that I'd like to draw your guys' attention to, which is the likes and dislikes on this video. This I found extremely fascinating to watch go up because it kind of acted as a behind-the-scenes representation of what was going on. Normally I sit around 97.1. This video tanked the like ratio really fucking hard, but it gives an accurate representation of how many people actually agree versus disagree. But we're looking at about a 64% like ratio. There's other people leaving comments saying, go ahead with the game with it while missing 60% of your player base. Well, if this is any indication, anybody who agreed with me probably upvoted the video. Anybody who disagreed with me probably downvoted the video. There's also going to be a lot of people in between that didn't vote either way and kind of don't care and are just going to play the game. So if anything, we would be losing sub 33% of the community based on the complaints that we saw with the people who disagree with me. It's not a majority of people who were upset with the game. It was just a very, very, very loud minority. And again, I don't want to say they're wrong and they shouldn't play the game. But that's going to be it for me, guys. Again, sorry I had to keep it a quick one. I normally like to script things just to keep things more concise and a lot more effective for you guys, but I really just didn't have the time. I got to edit this thing and fire it out in about the next hour because I got to get to bed for work tomorrow. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. I really appreciate it. And leave a comment below on what your guys' thoughts are on any of the points I made or otherwise. I try to get back to everybody that I can in the comments because I'm here for the discussion. I'm here to understand how this happened, and I'm here to try to communicate my point and see if we can get some awareness of what we're doing to Dark and Darker, because this, from all angles that I can perceive it, was the fan base destroying the thing that they love, and that sucks. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.